Hey guys, it's Bill from Linden, Tennessee. This is going to be a real quick update. I didn't do a whole lot on this over the weekend. I was working on my little Volkswagen. I got this little dude running. That's pretty awesome. So I didn't really do much on this. I did start trimming the foot pads, foot wells, foot places where you put your foot, so that it can steer. It's going to need a little bit more trimming still for the articulation, but that's okay. That'll need trimming. I still have to do the other side too. I think last time we talked, I was contemplating putting some sort of another set of chains or something on here. It's not going to work. I'm not going to be able to do that because I'll show you why. I even went to all the trouble of made all the bearing blocks and everything so that I could possibly do that. So we got that on there like that, and then got another bearing here. It's roughly where it would be, a little bit too high, but um, if I had it out far enough to do anything meaningful, now it's running into the steering, and whenever this articulates, it could hit. So one thing that I could be able to do if all else fails is I could take this plate back off and have just machine out a spot for that bearing to sit in it. But that's kind of problematic because I got to have two bearings. I got to have one on the top, one on the bottom. This would obviously be the one on the top, and then this would be the one on the bottom. So yeah, I'd have to cut this kind of short in order to clear the chain down here. Now I could probably do that. I probably have, I don't know, 2 inches maybe of travel in that, or 2 inches of clearance, and that's probably enough for sufficient support for that bearing. Um, I don't know. If I have to do that, that's what I'll do because I'll have to. But in the meantime, I think I told you I ordered a steering hub adapter for for a Nissan Versa steering wheel, and here it is. It came with some other parts, but ultimately this is the part that's necessary. And I was trying to figure out how to make a plate that will screw to these screws, and then have the 5 mounting screws for my Grant GT steering wheel. And I went through all kinds of different iterations and thoughts of how in the world to do that. This is the part that came with the Grant steering wheel. This is those are the 5 screws that bolt to it, and then these are 3 screws for who knows what purpose. I don't know. I don't know. I don't really know what those are for. They would bolt into something else, maybe some sort of another adapter. I don't know. But I was trying to figure out how to do all this stuff. But the problem is, uh, I'm limited with space, and now I'm going to have that steering booster, and then this shaft. That shaft right there is long, and then it goes into this adapter, which is additional length, and then it goes into this little hub thing for the Grant steering wheel, and then the steering wheel itself is actually dished out. I mean, that's over a foot. That's like probably closer to a foot and a half of extra travel or extra length that I just don't have room for. So I started to make a little plate that you can see those 2 holes there on the side. I drilled those, and I made a plate that's the same size as this. And I was like, well, I can just screw that plate to this, and then screw some holes in that plate, countersink those holes so that these little tapered screws will fit in that, and then then they all can screw together. And then I thought to myself, well, hang on now. Well, actually, I tried that. I tried that first, and I sat in the seat and I tried to make it all work, but it was really, really high. It was just too tall. It was like about a foot too tall. And then it came up to me. It's like, well, hang on now. This was made of 2 pieces. They were just kind of welded together. How about we just make a little bracket that weld it so it bolts the steering wheel straight to this little thing that you make, and then weld that straight to this part, and then that goes right into the steering booster. So that's what I did. This looks really, really neat because I turned it down. I cut it over a little bit oversized, and then welded it onto this part, put that part up in the lathe, and then spun that turn that down so it looks really sharp. It looks very, very nice. And then just kind of carefully transfer these holes. I also went back in the lathe and just sort of scribed a circle so that I could see that circle when I put this steering wheel on there, and then I could mark my 5 holes and then drill them carefully so that they're where they need to be, and then tap them for 1032 volts, and voila, there it is. And it looks like, from what I can tell, this is going to work just fine. It might be a little bit low, but the cool thing is I can extend this out and maybe come up with some sort of way to lock that into place. I might be able to cut a slot right here and then weld a nut and a bolt so that you can just clamp that together and it'll hold it solid. I don't know. Or I might just keep it removable. That'd be kind of cool, but it'd also be kind of nice if it was solid. So you don't accidentally pull it off while you're driving. That wouldn't be any good. But or this isn't hardened steel. I could just run a screw through there. I could figure out the height that it needs to be, mark it, clamp it somehow, and then just run a screw straight through it, and there you go. That'd be the thing to that. But I think that's going to work. Yeah, I went through a couple iterations of how long to make this. If you remember, this used to be an extending joint right here, but then I cut that part off and cut that part off, and I had these two just welded directly together like that. But that was actually too short. The problem is my angles were really extreme, so that's no good. So I added a little piece of that, and yeah, just welded it right there. So that's where that's going to be, and I think that's going to work. So the next thing to do is to somehow hold this in free space, make some bracketry to weld it to the frame so that it's solid and it doesn't move. And I don't know how to do that either yet. I got these 2 little holes on the side, or 2 bolts on the side. Those are nice and solid, but that's all I got. And there's some bolts on the front part of the motor, and then there's one right here, and there's one back here. So I'll use some sort of combination of those. I'll definitely use these 2, and then probably have a plate that comes out with a block on it, and then have a plate that comes from that screws into that block. So it'll be a 2-piece part, and that's how that'll go. Probably, I don't know. We'll see. That is the fun of doing this, is you don't know how you're going to do any of this stuff until you do it. And likewise, I spent $18 or whatever on this hub adapter, but I had to buy it before I could, so I could, hold things in position. And only by holding things in position did I determine that there was another way of doing it, better way of doing it. And so that's what I came up with. And likewise, I think I talked about it before, but this chain system I've got now on my steering, that only works because I have this double taper roller bearing in there. And the only reason I have the double taper roller bearing is because it was the process that I had to go through to try and make the linear actuator work, which ultimately we got rid of. But you have to go through all of those steps to end up where you are, and it's just the process. And I just really like this kind of stuff. There's no way you could plan what you want to do. I see people doing that all the time. They're trying to make a list of all the stuff they're going to need and how much cable are you going to need and how much of this and that. But you just can't, do that because it's, should I call it organic? I don't know. That's probably not the right word, but it's always evolving. The plan is, and you put something in one place and that kills the plan for putting something somewhere else. But that's what we do. And yeah, so one step closer on this, and we'll get some steering. Maybe I'll get that bracket all mounted. I'll figure out some way to make that bracket this weekend. Probably end up running a rope or something from the rafters down to hold that in place, so it's holding just out in space where I want it to be, and then I can make some linkage or something. I don't know how we're gonna do that. Anyway, that's where we're at. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.